says, I've heard that all of the seerah books aren't necessarily the most authentic, aren't necessarily sound, right? Is Zadul Ma'ad one of the sounder books? Jazakallahu khairan, a very important question, which an entire lecture can be given just on this one question, without any exaggeration. Very important and dangerous question. Is it true that all of the information in the books of seerah isn't necessarily authentic? Yes, that's true, without a question. In light of the statement of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, Aballahu an yatimma illa kitabuh. He says that Allah will never allow a book to be absolutely perfect but His. Allah will not allow, Aballah, Allah refuses to give that status to any book besides His. Any book that's not the Quran al-Kareem. To be absolutely 101% flawless. No. So of course, a book written by any scholar or imam of hadith or this person, one way or another is going to have a shortcoming, it's going to have a flaw, it's going to have an error, something that needs to be done. Anyone, I said, including anyone and everyone. That's what Imam Shafi'i said. And there's no doubt. No true scholar of Islam can differ on the validity of that statement. One who's actually practiced and went into the books and read and studied and compared. Someone who's experienced and seasoned in seeking knowledge. Allah refuses for a book to be perfect, 101% besides His, Azza wa Jal. So the books of seerah were written by who? Men. They were put together by men, compiled by men. So no matter how much knowledge those men had or those women had, how good their intention may have been or may have not been, there is always going to be room for error. That's the purity of Islam. You understand this? That's the what? The purity of Islam. We don't want to go off track, because we could go off track with the defilement of this understanding. There's no such thing as this person has mistakes or Sheikh Fulan said something wrong. We don't believe that he's exempt, but we've never ever found a mistake, ever. Okay, all of the people that wrote have a 700-page book here, a 500-page book here, a 10-tape lecture series here. This is all batil, a lie. He's ignorant, he's a fool. But you say that you don't believe that he's exempt from mistake. That doesn't add what? Doesn't add up. If I wrote a 700-page book about you, you think that nothing is going to be right? And you were in a boxing match and you fought 12 rounds to the end, 15 rounds back in the day. No matter how good of a boxer you are, I'm going to land at least what? He didn't touch me the whole fight. This is the reality of what we're dealing with here. This is serious. It's not a joke. So therefore, there isn't a book that is absolutely flawless except for Allah's book. Principle number one. Principle number two. The books of seerah were written by men, compiled by men, so it's going to be error. Point number three, like we read from Ibn Qayyim, there's going to be levels. There's certain books which are 90%, 80%, 75%, that's a high percentage, accurate. And there are going to be books that are going to be what? Not so accurate. Principle number four, when we say mistake or inaccurate or something is wrong, know for sure that this is relative. Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah says it's right, and Imam Malik says it's wrong. Who's right, who's wrong? Imam Ahmed said the hadith is sahih, and Ad-Daraqutni rahimahullah said it's daif, or Bukhari said it's daif. So it's subjective. It's subjective. And people think that the sciences of hadith are outside of the influence of human beings. No. The scholars of hadith agree and they also differ. Just like they agree and differ in what? Everything else. In fiqh, and this and that. There's no difference. There's schools of law and hadith. And just because a scholar says a hadith is sahih doesn't mean that the rest of the scholars agree, or vice versa. So in the seerah book, a person may say this is da'if, this is weak, this is not authentic. And another scholar may say, no, the story is authentic. The Prophet did do this. The Prophet did say this. You clear on this or not? This is in brief. How do you know as a layman Muslim, unless you arm yourself with some basic principles? And at the end of the day, you're going to blindly follow the one whom you trust the most. You clear on this or not? The next principle is, the ulama of al-Islam, they say, is that when it comes to the seerah, there is more room. There's more leniency with regards to weak narrations than with regards to aqidah or fiqh, halal and haram. Stories that are famous and popular in the seerah, which may not have the most strong chain of narration, is well known, passed down from generation to generation, and no one went against it. Yumasha, Yurwa, is mentioned, is narrated. Everyone understand this? This is in brief. That's what said this needs an entire lecture. And this misunderstanding that a weak hadith is totally useless. That's not true. That's not the way of the Salaf as-Salih. That a weak hadith is totally useless. That's not true. That is incorrect. Fabricated hadith, extremely weak hadith, that's a different story. So with that being said, the books of seerah, they differ. The different levels of the seerah books. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala in general was one of the greatest scholars of Islam. Period. Not the, but one of the greatest scholars of Islam. Period. So obviously, the power that Allah placed into his pen is going to be about anything that he writes about. But it does not mean that everything in there is exempt from error and infallible. It doesn't mean that. Ibn al-Qayyim's book, rahimahullah ta'ala, is a book on seerah, but at the same time, it's a bit different than the traditional books of seerah that start off, that stop and end in a story style. Ibn al-Qayyim, he talks about issues, he discusses fiqh, aqidah, ahkam, tafsir. He goes all the way in. That's one of the reasons why the book is not classified in the traditional sense as a book of seerah, like Ibn Hisham's book, which is based off of the seerah style. Clearness or not? So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala's book is an excellent book. It's a sound book. It's not a perfect book, but it's a sound book, like other books are sound. But the traditional books of seerah are going to be a bit different, oftentimes easier. They're going to talk about things in a different way and in a different manner. The general rule is, any book that you can get from Ibn al-Qayyim in Arabic or English, you should buy. General rule. There's no questioning, buy it. Just like when you go to the clothes store, it has this label on it, you do what? They don't make bad stuff. They don't make corny stuff. Boots, shoes, underwear, they don't what? They don't make bad stuff. All of this stuff is of good quality. It may not be the best. Other companies specialize in things, but this company, buy it. Inshallah, Ibn al-Qayyim. But it doesn't mean that everything that Ibn al-Qayyim says is agreed upon by the rest of the ulama. It doesn't mean that. Ibn Taymiyyah does not mean that. They were men. They were humans. They were what? And there's no disrespect to state that. There's no disrespect to what? State that as reality. The Prophet himself, he was commanded to say, "Innama ana basharun mithlukum." I'm a human being like what? Like you. So therefore, Ibn al-Qayyim, his book is an excellent book. And there are many other seerah books which are very good and are sound in general. But there's not going to be one book that's absolutely 100%, everything is going to be right. Because there are many seerah stories that in the Mizan al-Naqd al-Hadithi, and the scale of hadith science, may not fit the mark. But it's a famous story that does not contain a bad and negative meaning. Everyone understand this? There are many things, stories that are well known. This battle, this date, doesn't have an authentic chain of narration. But it doesn't have a bad meaning. And there are other prophetic stories, seerah stories that are very popular, but have a bad meaning. From those, what the ulama of Islam mentioned, that the Prophet ﷺ was thinking about committing suicide and killing himself. Is that authentic? And if it is inauthentic, does it have a bad or good meaning? That the Prophet was about to take his life because of stress and worry and grief. Another example of this, and this goes to show you extreme and lack of understanding, the story of the spider web. When I grew up as a young Muslim, I was taught never to kill a spider. Right? Never get rid of cobwebs in your house because of Abu Bakr and the Prophet were in the cave, and they were almost saw and spotted by the mushrikeen. And the story says that there was a spider's web. And they said there's no way that they could have entered into the mouth of the cave with the spider's web there. It's impossible. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla gave and inspired the spider to thread the web on the spot as a miracle to to protect his prophet and to protect his Siddiq. Is that story sahih or not? If it's not sahih, let's ask the question, does it have a bad meaning? Is it something negative? Is it impossible for Allah to do? Is it not in the Quran al-Kareem that the ant spoke? قالت نملة an ant said, يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحتمن سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. The ant said, oh ants, don't let Solomon and his army trample upon you. And Solomon and his army knew not that the ant was speaking. Does Allah not say that He's revealed to the bee how to construct his home and his house? It's not impossible. And oftentimes people, they go so hardcore in something that it takes them away from something that is from the Quran and the Sunnah. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentions in Aqidah al-Wasitiyah, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah believe in karamatul awliya. They believe in the supernatural things of Allah's chosen servants. And it doesn't mean that you're a Sufi if you believe in them. As the people, they go extreme in this. Allah could give a righteous person a miracle. Something that's beyond the natural. Umar radiallahu anhu, famous story. Where's they snag for this story? Is it sahih? Umar radiallahu anhu was given a khutbah one day, they say. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He gave him a vision that one of his generals was in trouble and he's about to be outflanked by the kuffar army. And Umar radiallahu anhu was shown this sign, and he said in the middle of the khutbah, Ya Sariya al-Jabal. He said, oh Sariya, the mountain, the mountain. And the general got what Umar radiallahu anhu had said from miles away to take a defensive position in the mountain and avoid the attack of the army. That's not being a Sufi to believe in that. Is that impossible for Allah to do? Once we start thinking like that and talking like that, we're going to reject the Quran. The shaitan urinates in your ear when you oversleep. How is that? There's nothing in my ear? When you placed in the grave, a person is smashed and squeezed and punished. We dug the person up a week later, his body is intact. That's the foundation of Iman. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Those who believe in the what? Unseen. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, walking on water. And the list goes on. It's not impossible. The problem is going extreme in that and claiming it and lying and basing your faith off of that, like the Catholics do. A miracle. A saint. That's the problem. There's a balance. Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, there's a what? A balance. And Allah could give something to someone that's supernatural. أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ لَهُمُ الْبُشْرَى عِينًا فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. Allah says, indeed, the awliya of Allah will have no sadness and no grief. Those who had iman and taqwa, for them is the good tidings, the glad tidings in this world and the what? And the hereafter. So it's a very important concept. And this is a part of the way of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah as well. That you don't hear and that you don't read about. That's in the books of the ulama of Islam. So we have to be mindful of this. And Allah knows best. Are there any other questions? Any questions on the live stream? Father Javid. Question says, what's the best way or the best approach to teach your family the seerah of the Messenger of Allah? Is the live stream on? It's not on. Okay, so I've made another mistake. Sorry about that, guys. Allah forgive me. I know why. Too late now. Qadr Allah. Tayyib. Al-Muhim. What's the best approach to teach your children the seerah? Inshallah, we're going to speak about that in the upcoming classes. But in brief, I would say is to make the seerah practical. Make it practical. Take it away from the theory, but make it alive and living. Walking down the street, driving in a car, going to school, we're minority Muslims. The Prophet was once a minority. Oh, Abby, I read that they did this to these Muslims. They killed these Muslims. There was once a time in which they did what? To the companions. I had a dream, Abby. The Prophet had a dream. And he explains to us the importance of dreams. I have friends, good friends. Who should I hang around? The Prophet had good friends. Make it practical. Make it real life to your children. And reward them. Every time you read a book on the seerah, the Prophet or the companions, I'll buy you something, I'll give you something. Make it taste sweet to them. Make it fun for them. Make a game. A contest in which they challenge themselves to outdo their siblings in good. وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. Not jealousy, but competing upon good. Make it something that is practical and fun for them. And obviously, depending on the child, the age of the child, the gender of the child, you can actually sit down and teach them out of a book. But not all children. Some children can't sit still. They don't have long attention span. So you have to break it down. And it's all a part about being a good teacher. And that's from the responsibilities of being a father or a mother. You don't have to be the best teacher, but you have to have some basic goodness. How to get the message across to your child. And if you can't do it, then at least allow those who can to do it. Once we were in the house of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Aqil in Medina. He had a meeting for the American students. I think it was the first Wednesday of every month, in which a lot of American brothers will go. The Bloods and the Crips. Seriously. The brothers that didn't speak to these and those, all of them, they agreed that this sheikh is what? He's okay. This is a real story. I'm not making this up. No doubt. So in his household, he would do the class after Salat al-Isha. But if you got to his house before the Iqamah of Isha, before the Adhan, you could catch him when there's only a few people there. Or even after Isha, if you got there early enough before the crowd came, you could actually sit with him and he would entertain you and you could talk to him, ask him questions, whatever you wanted to do. So, this is a highly important story about if you can't do it, allow someone who can. Have enough humility to allow that. He was being asked questions about da'wah and seerah. Wallahi, about the seerah. And he said those words, he says the student of knowledge must have, he says, ma'rifatun tafsiliyatun, a detailed knowledge of seerah. And how powerful the seerah is. And he would give brothers instruction when they go back to their country, how they're outnumbered. The Sufis run my country, the Rafida run my country, we're the minority, so on and so on. What to do? Should we fight them? Should we refute them? Should we join sides with them? What should we do? And he would give advice and give his view and his opinion on these issues. So one day, he was trying to give the brothers a lesson about strategy, being strategic in your da'wah, and not being reckless, and being patient, and being tender, kind, and soft in your da'wah. And not getting to every fight that someone calls you out to, let alone attacking. That's what he said. And he mentioned a story about some students of knowledge who came from Sudan. Sudan, they speak Arabic, knowledge is there. Well-known legacy is Sudan. And we also know that Sudan is a country like many other countries, which is full of Sufis. Full of Sufis. Riddled with Sufis, infested with Sufis. And of different levels. Some are really, really bad. Some are just like this, etc. So many of the students of knowledge who studied in Medina, they would go back to their country. They didn't have a masjid to work at. They didn't have a center. They didn't have no occupation. They didn't have no platform to teach. What are we to do? So he mentioned a story of how some tulabul ilm, they went back to their countries. They went back to Sudan specifically. And they only did tahfidh of the Quran. That was it. We know the Quran, we've memorized the Quran, we have ijaz in Medina. They're not going to let us teach and get on the minbar, but they'll allow us to teach the children. But there were some older brothers that were in the way. These guys are Wahhabis. Don't let them teach your children anything. These guys are brainwashed from Saudi. They've thrown away the Sudani culture. Get rid of them. But they kept teaching the children and teaching the children just Quran. He says, so after some time went by, and they start spitting out and producing huffaz. My son has memorized the Quran. My son has learned the Quran by heart. Whatever you're saying is Allah above the throne. And my son has memorized the Quran in your class. Gain respect. So some of the older Sufis and the senior Sufis that were hardcore and staunch, after they start seeing the wheel turning, the students learning the Quran and benefiting the Quran, they said to them, they says, these are your children. Do whatever you want with them. Teach them whatever you want to teach them. They're yours. You've produced this type of positivity. Do what? Tafadhal. So the point of the story, the moral story, hopefully is clear with regards to children and what to do and what not to do. and what to focus on, and how the benefit that will come from it. The point of the story, the moral of the story, hopefully that's clear, huh? With regards to the seerah and doing things in this way, and how to teach your children what? The seerah. So this is a very important issue. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. If there's any other questions, we will stop now. Jazakumullah khairan. Fadl. Ka'b. Says, is there seerah in the Quran or not? Of course, the Quran al-Kareem is one of the greatest sources of seerah. When you read the story, Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa Tab, Surah Al-Masad, that's about the seerah. There was an evil, ugly man who hated the Prophet, and his wife hated the Prophet, and he wanted to do harm to the Prophet, and Allah said that they would be ruined. That's seerah. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. It's talking about what? Seerah. Fadl. Abu Talib, his wife. That's right. The Quran is full of, Abu Lahab. No, not Abu Talib, Abu Lahab. Yes. Many, many stories. The Quran is full of seerah. طيب جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. وإياكم كيف أنا شيخ الحمد لله. How you been? Inshallah, inshallah. I'm all ears. I forgot to put it, made it public. Send me a text and I'll send you the links. You still got the same number? Yes, yes, I do. Send me a text right now and I'll send you the links. Bidnillah, my word, inshallah. Got you. Bidnillah. Got you, Sheikh, inshallah.